Stop trying. I'm not asking you to give up your desire, I'm demanding that you give up your anxiety. Trying is the polite name for despair. It's the mind running in circles, repeating phrases like someone pushing a door that only opens when you stop pushing. You want results in the world, and to get them, you spend hours negotiating with appearances, checking your balance, looking at the clock, checking a message, watching someone's face, trying to extract a sign that reality is moving. When you don't see it, you try harder, and you call this cycle persistence. I call it chosen delay. Listen closely. Visible reality is not an origin, it is an effect. It is the foam on top of the sea, not the ocean. It is the dust that rises after the carriage, not the horse that pulls it. Everything you see, including what you call a problem, is the delayed translation of an internal state that has been maintained long enough. The world doesn't decide for you, it repeats you. And the shadow always arrives later. If you live checking the shadow to decide if the body is standing, you will never get up. The work isn't to convince the world. The work is to choose a state and remain in it until the world, which is just a slow mirror, is forced to reflect it. When I say that 10 minutes of this is worth more than 10,000 hours of manifestation, I am saying 10 minutes of absolute decision is worth more than a lifetime of nervous effort. Because what manifests isn't the time spent, it's the type of presence you inhabit. There are people who spend years collecting methods and get nowhere because they remain the same person inside. The person who asks, the person who waits, the person who needs proof to breathe. And there are people who change in an instant because they finally get tired of asking permission and take the command chair. The first principle is simple, which is why most people will try to complicate it. You don't practice to get, you practice to be. 10 minutes are enough when in those 10 minutes you abandon the persona that chases and step into the skin of someone who already has. It's not visualization as a distant movie, it's occupation, it's residence. You are not thinking positive, you are installing an internal address. And an address isn't debated, it's inhabited. When you fully enter this address, your body changes its tone, your gaze changes its reading, your decisions change direction. See the difference? One person can repeat "I am prosperous" for hours with a tight stomach, and it's just noise. Another person can stay silent for 10 minutes, feel the relief of paying for everything with ease, feel the lightness in their shoulders, feel the normality of being well treated by life, and emerge with the same naturalness as someone who already belongs to that side. The first is trying, the second is being. The first speaks to convince themselves, the second feels because they have already decided. The first wants a spark to believe, the second believes, and that's why the spark comes. So I will give you the core of these 10 minutes. It's not imagining 1,000 things, it's choosing a short scene that implies the end. A single, well-chosen image is a decree. It could be you closing your laptop after seeing a deposit and breathing like someone returning to normal. It could be your hand signing something calmly without trembling, like someone signing what was expected. It could be you laughing on the phone and saying it worked out, and the laugh isn't surprise, it's confirmation. It could be you walking through your house and touching the wall with that dry, simple feeling of ownership, not a dream. Now, the detail that changes everything. You don't watch this scene as a spectator. You enter it. You see through your own eyes. You hear through your own ears. You feel the temperature of the air. You notice the weight of your body in the chair. You notice the relaxation on the face of someone who isn't chasing anything. And you allow your body to learn the normality of your desired outcome. It's not euphoria. Euphoria is hunger. It's normality. Normality is possession. When you live the scene as internal reality, you are teaching your entire system an instruction. This is how I exist now. If, in the middle of these minutes, your mind tries to open the list of problems, you don't argue with it. You don't debate. You don't give it a stage. You return to the desired outcome like someone returning home. The mind wants to turn the practice into hard work to feel useful. Don't fall into that trap. Your goal is a felt decision. A felt decision is when the body accepts. This is how it is. From then on, the rest is just the mirror's delay. And here's the test. When you finish, you don't go looking for signs to confirm if it worked. You leave as someone who is already confirmed. If you emerge from these minutes with the feeling that you need to hold on to the result, you are still trying. The sign that you did it right is the opposite. You leave lighter, quieter, less desperate for confirmation. You leave with composure. And composure is the clearest command there is. Life organizes itself faster around composure than around words. If you want a practical structure for these 10 minutes, with simple exercises, clear steps, and tools to maintain focus, cut doubt, and align action with the state, there's a guide in the pinned comment that leads you directly to what works, without embellishment or confusion. Now I'm going to pull you out of the most common addiction, thinking that after these 10 minutes, you need to keep manifesting all day long, as if carrying a glass full to the brim. That is still trying. The second principle is the art of closing the door from the inside. When you decide on a state, your task isn't to repeat the desire, it's to cut off conversation with its opposite. The world will provoke you. It will show a delay, a cold response, a smaller number, a disturbance, and your mind will want to turn that into a judgment. This is where the weak lose. They use appearances as a hammer to break their own decision. You will do the opposite. You will use appearances as loyalty training. Not to fight with them, but not to bow to them. Imagine you've tuned into a radio station. The music is already playing. If, with every static crackle, you turn the dial back to the old station, you never hear the whole song. The static is irrelevant. Your job is to maintain the tuning. And maintaining the tuning isn't spending all day affirming like a spiritual parrot. It's not going back to the old identity. It's not ruminating. It's not naming a fleeting detail as your destiny. It's not asking chaos for permission to be who you've chosen to be. Think of it like a thermometer and a thermostat. The thermometer merely reads the environment and reports. The thermostat sets the temperature and maintains it. Most people live like a thermometer. It's cold, so I feel cold. It's hot, so I melt. It's difficult, so I give up. You will live like a thermostat. I choose the temperature of my state and the environment adjusts. Not by magic words, but by coherence. Your coherence reorganizes your choices, your demeanor, your actions, and even the people around you. The world changes because you change your place within. The mind loves to justify. It wants reasons to sustain a state. It wants proof to rest. And that's why it doesn't rest. Proof is a mirror's business, and the mirror always arrives late. The discipline here is simple and brutal. You don't use the now as an argument against what you've decided. You use the now as a training ground. If something goes against you, don't ask why is it like this. That is kneeling before the delay. Ask who would I be if this were already resolved? And then you adjust your center to that person. You can even resolve external things, but you resolve them like someone who has already won. Not like someone begging for victory. This demeanor has clear signs. The resolved person doesn't rush to tell the story seeking solace. They don't keep refreshing the screen as if the refresh would create the result. They don't live in a sign-hunting mode. They return to their center, take the next step calmly, and proceed. Sometimes the next step is small, sending an email, reviewing a budget, adjusting a habit, going to bed early, speaking firmly, studying a skill. Small but aligned. The aligned has strength. The frantic has noise. There is a silence more powerful than any phrase. It's the silence of one who has already resolved. You don't go around announcing it. You don't keep asking for opinions. You don't keep asking the world to agree with you. You decide and close the door from the inside. And when appearances knock, you don't open. You don't open with debate. You don't open with fear. You don't open with what if. You maintain the state, like someone maintaining a pact with their own identity. The third principle is the most intimate. You don't change the world, you change your skin. Many people want to manifest things without abandoning the identity that matches the lack. They want money, but continue to be the one who needs. They want love, but continue to be the one who fears. They want respect, but continue to be the one who apologizes for existing. And then they call that bad luck. It's not bad luck, it's coherence. You don't receive what you desire. You receive what aligns with who you are inside. So the question isn't, how do I make this happen? The question is, who do I need to be for this to already be true? And when you answer, you don't answer with theory. You answer with an internal gesture. You answer with a choice of identity. Identity is the filter through which you interpret everything. It's the glasses you wear without realizing it. Change the glasses and the world changes color, shape, and destiny. If you want prosperity, stop asking the world for money. Step into the skin of one who manages, who decides, who chooses calmly. The prosperous person has a signature trait. They don't despair over numbers. They work with numbers. They don't buy to fill an emotional void. They buy as an extension of value. They aren't ashamed to learn. They learn like someone investing in themselves. If you want a solid relationship, stop asking for love. Step into the skin of one who is naturally chosen. This person doesn't beg for a response. They position themselves. They respect themselves. They don't negotiate for crumbs. If you want confidence, step into the skin of one who doesn't over-explain. Someone who is secure doesn't try to convince. They simply are. If you want opportunities, step into the skin of one who is useful, clear, and reliable. The person who attracts doors isn't the person who asks for doors. It's the person who carries a key. A key is competence, composure, consistency. If you want health, step into the skin of one who is vital. This person doesn't live talking about their body as an enemy. They care for it, they rest, they move, they choose food like someone choosing energy, not like someone negotiating guilt. And here's the secret. Imagination is the workshop where you try on these skins. You enter for a few minutes and live the life of your resolved self with such precision that your body learns the way. Think of an actor who rehearses until the role becomes second nature. Only in your case, the role isn't fiction, it's a selection of reality. You rehearse the state not to deceive, you rehearse to choose. For your internal world, what is lived intensely is instruction, and instruction repeated with conviction becomes habit, and habit becomes destiny. When you start to put on the new skin, the world tries to remind you of the old one. It presents you with people, memories, and conversations that pull you back. Here's your courage. You don't argue with the past. You don't debate with it. You don't apologize for changing. You simply don't go back. You might be on the same street at the same job, in the same house, but with a different inhabitant inside. This scares the circumstances because they depended on your old character to exist. Without the old character, they lose their foundation. The fourth principle will free you from a terror, the terror of signs. You've been trained to interpret every detail as a verdict. He saw it and didn't respond. She took a long time. The boss didn't call. The bill arrived. The news was bad. And you turn that into a prophecy. I'm going to teach you to read this like an adult. Signs don't command, signs reveal. They show where you are inside, not where you're going outside. When something triggers you, don't rush to put out the fire with panic. Look at the trigger as a map. It's pointing to a hidden state that you are still feeding. The world is a delayed mirror, yes, but it's also a teacher. It shows you what you insist on being when no one is looking. Use this intelligently. If you see a closed door, don't conclude, it's not for me. Conclude, the version of me that still doubts is asking for a stage. And then you remove the stage. You don't argue with the door, you change the state. There is a silent tool that few use with courage, revision. It's not pretending it didn't happen. It's rewriting the meaning of what happened. The event might have been harsh, but the meaning is your choice. You take a moment that hurt you and use it as raw material. At night you revisit it and live it again in a way that affirms your state. It's not to please the memory, it's to re-educate the mirror. You are saying, what rules here is my state, not my reflection. You can imagine this as a film editor. The world delivers raw footage to you, sometimes poorly lit, sometimes out of focus. The amateur watches and concludes, that's the final truth. The editor cuts, reorganizes, swaps the soundtrack, changes the close-up, and the entire meaning transforms. Do the same internally. When an old thought appears, don't treat it as me. Treat it as an old take. Cut. Replace. Repeat the new take until it becomes the official version. The mirror does not resist sustained editing. I'll give you an image. Think of a sculptor. They don't cry because the block hasn't become a statue yet. They strike the block knowing what they are forming. The block resists, the dust falls, and the form appears. The average person looks at the block and says, it's still a block. The sculptor looks and says, it already is. Who will you be? The block's crybaby or the sculptor of the result? Your minutes of imagination are the drawing. Your day is the hammer. And the hammer, when guided by vision, isn't violence, it's precision. The fifth principle is discipline without theatricality. Many people think discipline is suffering. No, discipline is fidelity. It's repeating the essential without drama. You don't need hours, you need quality and constancy. 10 minutes of your chosen state every day are a drop that wears down stone. But pay attention, it's not repeating because you're afraid to lose. It's repeating because that's who you are now. You brush your teeth without anxiety. You do it because it's standard. Make your state your standard. You wake up and before touching the world, you touch your center. You pause your body, breathe, choose the scene of the desired outcome, feel the normality, and then you emerge. Then you live the day as an extension of that. This means acting in alignment. It's not acting to force a result. It's acting because the state demands it. The person who already has organizes themselves. The person who is already confident speaks with clarity. The person who is already resolved chooses the next step calmly. Sometimes the next step is sending a message you've been avoiding. Sometimes it's studying and preparing in silence. Sometimes it's cutting a habit that keeps you small. Sometimes it's saying no. It's always moving as if you already are. And when the world tests you, you return to your center in micro moments. A minute in the bathroom, a minute in the car, a minute before responding to someone. You don't need a public ritual. You just need not to abandon your chosen identity. You will realize that over time, the struggle diminishes because the new state becomes automatic and the old one becomes strange. This is how transformation happens, not like fireworks, but like shedding skin. I'm going to tell you a simple story because your intellect likes to hide in theories. A man wanted to change his financial life. He spent entire nights doing manifestation with spreadsheets open and fear in his chest. He called that dedication. In truth, it was sophisticated panic. One day he got tired. He closed everything. He sat for 10 minutes and decided on a state: calm, order, dignity. He saw himself paying for everything with ease, and more than that, he saw himself being respected by himself. The next day, he made 3 moves that his old character always put off. He organized the month, sought to learn a skill he'd been postponing, and cut an expense that was just an anesthetic. Within weeks, an opportunity appeared. Within months, the pattern changed. The mirror only did what it always does. It followed the state. And here's another story, even more direct. A woman wanted to be valued and respected at work. She made affirmations while accepting being interrupted, cancelled on, ignored. She wanted a new mirror with an old face. Until, for 10 minutes, she entered the state of one who is already recognized. She felt the good weight of competence. She felt the firm ground beneath her feet. Then, the same day, she spoke differently. She wasn't aggressive. She was clear. She stopped asking and started informing. She stopped shrinking herself to fit in. The team found it strange. The boss noticed. In a short time, the environment had to adjust, not because someone became nice, but because her identity ceased to permit the old theater. Do you see? The world changes when you stop pleading. The world rearranges itself when you stop begging for signs. What you call luck is often just a fearless identity. What you call bad luck is often an identity asking for permission. So abandon now the habit of measuring the invisible with the ruler of the visible. You want a sign tomorrow. You want a message today. You want confirmation now. And while wanting, you declare lack. Your state is your silent request. If your state is, I am waiting, you will receive more reasons to wait. If your state is, it already is, you will receive mirrors that confirm it. Not immediately because the mirror is slow, but inevitably because it has no choice. You are not a beggar at the door of reality. You are the author of the internal script, and the world is the delayed stage. Choose the script and stop watching the old scenes as if they were finales. They are just reruns. Now, I close this with the only command that matters. From now on, stop begging for external changes. Stop negotiating with what you see. Enter into silence and choose with precision the state you want to inhabit. Sustain it for 10 minutes with quality, like someone placing an invisible crown on their own head. Then walk through your day as someone who already belongs. When appearances try to bend you, don't fight with them. Simply don't recognize them as authority. Revise the meaning. Close the door from the inside and observe, without idolizing signs, how life begins to obey the only power it respects: sustained identity. And if you want to support this decision with a simple and objective routine, with practices that strengthen focus, clarity, and aligned action, the path is in the pinned comment link. Use it as a tool and return to living as the commander of your state. Now go. Don't ask, don't beg, don't wait. Command in silence and certainty, and let reality do what it always does. Obey the state you sustain. Stop. Just stop for a moment. Close your eyes and feel the invisible weight of the things you've been carrying. Desires, worries, expectations, prayers that seem unanswered. The world taught you to chase what you want, to battle, to ask, to beg, to feel small in the face of life. But that is the greatest illusion of all, because the universe was never outside of you. It is the mirror of your consciousness, and everything you see, every detail of your reality, is merely a reflection of what you have silently assumed to be true within yourself. People spend their lives trying to change the effects, but they ignore the cause. They want the mirror to smile, but they keep their own faces closed off. They want new harvests, but insist on planting the same seeds of doubt, fear, and scarcity. Life does not respond to your requests. It responds to your state. That is why many pray with words of faith, but with feelings of absence. They ask for love, but vibrate loneliness. They ask for prosperity, but feel scarcity. And the universe, a faithful servant, merely reflects what the heart sustains as real. When I say repeat this just 6 times, I'm not talking about a magic ritual. I'm talking about a conscious act of creation, because repetition is not about the words, it is about the consciousness that inhabits them. Each time you repeat a truth with faith, the invisible begins to reorganize around it. You are not just saying something, you are shaping the substance of the invisible. The universe is malleable to your faith, but rigid in the face of your doubt. The mistake of most is to seek signs before feeling the truth. They want to see to believe, but they forget that to believe is to see. Everything begins with a simple inner gesture, assuming that what you desire already is, and sustaining that certainty, even when the visible world screams otherwise. That is faith, not the faith that waits, but the faith that knows. When you repeat an affirmation with this consciousness, it transforms into a command. The universe does not respond to pleas, it responds to decrees. That is why I say, repeat 6 times, not because the number holds mystical power, but because it is enough to break the mind's resistance and open space for feeling. 6 times of pure conviction are worth more than 1,000 empty repetitions. So, before you begin, quiet the noise of the world. Forget time, bills, news, people. Breathe and remember, you are the creative center of your reality. What you are about to do is not ask, it is to command. You are not trying to convince the universe, you are reminding it who you are. Because when the child remembers their inheritance, the father responds immediately. From this moment on, speak not as one who waits, but as one who already has. Not as one who seeks, but as one who has found. And notice, the energy changes, the air changes, the vibration of your body changes. It is in this state that the impossible begins to move toward you. Silent, precise, inevitable. Now prepare yourself. Because if you understand what lies behind these 6 repetitions, nothing will be impossible. The first principle is to understand that conscious repetition is the language of the invisible. Everything that exists began as an idea repeated with feeling. Every word spoken with faith shapes the substance of the unseen world, and what is sustained internally becomes inevitable on the physical plane. But there is a profound difference between repeating out of desperation and repeating out of consciousness. The desperate speak because they want to change what they see. The conscious speak because they have already changed what they feel. This is the key. True repetition is not a request. It is a silent declaration of mastery. Each time you affirm something with conviction, the universe understands this is, and the invisible begins to reorganize to reflect the state you have chosen to inhabit. What few realize is that the power of repetition is not in the number of times, but in the quality of presence. Saying "I am prosperous" 1,000 times without feeling anything is just noise, but saying it 6 times with a heart ablaze with certainty, feeling the weight of abundance in your hands, the warmth of gratitude in your chest is enough to move mountains. Creation does not obey numbers, it obeys vibrations. When the sound of your voice is in harmony with the feeling of your soul, the universe listens. It does not hear your words, it hears what they carry. Each repetition is a seed sown in the invisible field. The soil is your consciousness, and this soil does not reject what it receives, it merely multiplies. If you plant doubt, you reap confusion. If you plant certainty, you reap manifestations. Therefore, what you repeat in silence is even more powerful than what you say aloud, because internal words shape the structure of your being, and what the being assumes the world reflects. Most live as spiritual beggars, repeating phrases without presence, believing that sound can replace feeling. It cannot. The vibration of the word is the vehicle, the fuel is the feeling. It is the feeling that gives life to the affirmation. When you say "I am free" and truly feel freedom expanding within you, the invisible registers this as a law, and all the circumstances of your life begin to conspire to prove that the decree was true. This is the perfect justice of the law. It does not judge, it merely reflects. Therefore, it is not necessary to repeat 1,000 times. It is necessary to repeat until you believe. Repetition does not change the world, it changes you, and when you change, the world bends. The process is simple: declare, feel, sustain. Do this 6 times, not with the anxiety of seeing results, but with the serenity of one who knows the decree has already been fulfilled. True faith does not shout, does not beg, does not demand, it rests. It watches the invisible move and merely says, "It is done." So when you repeat, do not do it out of habit. Do it with intention. Close your eyes, withdraw from the world's noise, and go within yourself. Repeat with strength, with calm, and with love. See the image of your desire as already realized. Feel the relief of one who has already received. And know, the universe does not resist a heart that already believes. Because in the language of creation, the verb is not future, it is present. Everything you repeat with faith is already happening now. The second principle is to understand that everything you see on the outside is merely a reflection of what you are sustaining on the inside. The world is not a force attacking you, nor a reality separate from you. It is a faithful mirror of your consciousness. Every situation, every person, every event that arises before you is a response to what you believe to be true. There is no coincidence, there is correspondence. And as long as you try to change the mirror without changing your expression, you will continue repeating the same cycles, only with different faces and scenarios. External reality is like a shadow. It moves as the inner body moves. If you feel rejected, you will find rejection in every gesture, even if no one intends to push you away. If you feel blessed, life opens up in unexpected ways, even when everything seems to collapse. The world does not decide for you. It merely translates what you feel yourself to be. This is the law, and it is as exact as gravity. Therefore, as long as you look outward for proof, you will remain trapped in the cycle of doubt. Faith begins when you understand that there is nothing out there to conquer, only inner states to assume. The problem is not a lack of opportunities, but a lack of identity. When someone sees themselves as a failure trying to win, even if they fight with all their might, they will continue to attract situations that confirm their own belief. But when they decide to see themselves as victorious, even without results, the universe begins to conspire silently to prove they were right all along. Changing the reflection requires changing the gaze. What you feel about yourself is the mold that shapes the world. And it's not about ignoring reality, but about understanding that it is an echo. You don't need to fight the echo, just change the sound that provokes it. When consciousness changes, the world has no choice but to follow. That is why miracles happen suddenly, not because something new was created, but because a new state was assumed. People often say, "When I have more money, I will be peaceful." But the law is inverse. When I am peaceful, money will come. Because the state of peacefulness is the vibration of abundance, and the universe only delivers what it finds in resonance. Everything is reflection. Everything is response. Everything is confirmation. So, look around. Everything you see is a testament to what you have believed about yourself. If you want to change the testament, change the belief. Begin to live as one who already is what they desire to be. Speak, walk, think and react as if everything has already been fulfilled. This is true prayer, not words spoken to heaven, but states assumed in the soul. The repetition that transforms is that which alters the inner reflection. When you repeat, "I am worthy, I am loved, I am prosperous," and sustain that feeling even if the world denies it, you are reprogramming the mirror of reality. And sooner or later, it will yield. Because the world is merely the inverted image of what you decide to believe. The third principle is to live now the state you wish to experience. The human mind is the portal between the invisible and the visible, and it only manifests what it recognizes as real. As long as you think of your desire as something distant, it will remain distant. Everything that seems not yet exists because you continue to sustain the not yet within yourself. The secret is to feel now as one who already possesses what they seek. It is not pretense, it is not illusion, it is spiritual understanding. When you assume the desired state as present, even without seeing it, the universe begins to reorganize to confirm what you have decided to be. Most live as if life is always about to happen. They say, "When I have this, I will be happy." But this phrase is a spell that traps them in time. Because the when never arrives, it renews itself each day in new forms of waiting. Life is not a sequence of events. It is a mirror of your being. Everything that is felt with truth now, even if only in imagination, is already creation. Imagination is the womb of reality. It is there that the invisible takes shape before being born into the world of the senses. Therefore, stop waiting for signs. Stop looking at the clock and doubting because the result has not yet come. Manifestation is not the future catching up to you. It is the present becoming conscious of itself. When you feel prosperous, loved, healed, complete, no matter what the world says, you are already vibrating in the corresponding reality. And the universe, being perfect in its laws, has no choice but to respond to the frequency you emit. Living the desired state is an act of silent faith. It is choosing to smile before the blessing, to give thanks before the miracle, to walk as one who has already arrived. It is the same principle that made Christ say, "Father, I thank you because you have already heard me." He did not wait for the sign. He lived the certainty. This is the posture of the true Creator. They do not seek, they express. They do not beg, they recognize. And you can do the same. If you desire prosperity, inwardly clothe yourself as prosperous. Feel the comfort of being in abundance. Imagine the freedom of owing nothing. Feel the relief of one who can choose without fear. If you desire love, feel the warmth of being loved, the respect of being seen, the peace of being complete. Do not wait for someone to give it to you. Bring that vibration within, and the world will reflect it in faces, places, and opportunities. Everything you want already exists in potential. What is missing is not the miracle, it is your decision to live it now. At every moment, you are choosing a state, that of lack or that of fullness. And it is this state, not your desire, that creates your experience. So live as one who already has, feel as one who already is, and the invisible will bend before your conviction. Because time does not create reality, consciousness creates time. The fourth principle is to abandon the habit of begging. As long as you ask, you declare that you do not have. As long as you plead, you affirm absence. The universe does not respond to pleas. It responds to silent commands born of certainty. What creates is not the act of asking, it is the act of assuming. When you speak as someone who already possesses, The universe understands the command and obeys. But when you speak as someone in need, you merely reinforce the distance between yourself and what you desire. That is why many pray and nothing changes, because their words say one thing, but their heart vibrates another. You were not born to beg for blessings. You were born to decree realities. Consciousness is the supreme authority over the invisible. When Christ said, "Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours," he was not teaching to ask. He was teaching to believe that you have already received. This is the difference between the common person and the conscious creator. The common person asks for relief. The creator gives thanks because they have already been heard. One speaks from lack, the other speaks from fullness. And the universe, being a mirror, returns exactly the state from which the voice came. Begging is living in the illusion of separation, as if life is out there and you are here trying to reach it. But the universe is not separate from you. It is an extension of your consciousness. Everything you call outside is merely the visible part of your interior. Therefore, when you change within, the outside bends. The secret is to learn to speak to life as one who has authority over it, not as one who fears losing it. Asking is the act of the servant. Commanding is the act of the child. The servant waits for the master to listen. The child knows they are already an heir. When you understand this, you begin to pray differently. You no longer say, "Lord, help me," but, "Lord, I thank you because it is already mine." You do not cry out for something distant, but confirm something present. This change in posture is the point where energy transforms, because the universe does not obey your anxiety, it obeys your certainty. Those who live asking never realize that the request itself is the obstacle. It is like someone who, having received the key, continues to knock on the door. The act of knocking reinforces the belief that they are still outside, and meanwhile the portal remains open, waiting for them to simply enter. So it is with everything you seek. There is nothing locked. There is only your refusal to accept that it is already available. So stop pleading. Speak as one who already possesses. Give thanks before you see. Gratitude is the language of those who know. Say, "I have already received. It is done." And maintain this posture even when the world seems to contradict you. What the world shows is merely the echo of what you were yesterday. Remain firm in the state of "it is already," and the echo will transform. This is true prayer, not an anxious request, but a silent declaration of mastery, because the universe is not a judge, it is a faithful servant. It does not ask if you deserve. It merely obeys what you assume yourself to be. The fifth principle is to understand that persistence in feeling is what transforms the invisible into reality. Nothing resists an inner state sustained with faith. Most people begin believing, but give up halfway because they do not see immediate results. They forget that time, on the plane of manifestation, is merely the interval between feeling and seeing. The physical world is slow compared to the speed of consciousness. Therefore, when someone changes their state and maintains that vibration, the world inevitably bends. There are no exceptions. What they call waiting time is merely the universe adjusting to the new frequency. Creation does not happen when you imagine something once, but when that image becomes a home within you. It is easy to believe for a few minutes. It is difficult to remain in that state when the world contradicts what you have decided to be. And that is where few persevere. But it is precisely this constancy that defines the true creator. Repeating with feeling until the new state becomes natural, that is the secret. You do not need to force the result. You only need to keep the conviction alive. When the new state ceases to be an effort and becomes part of your identity, the invisible has already surrendered. The universe does not rush, but it also does not fail. It responds to the most dominant vibration you sustain. If today you affirm something and tomorrow you doubt, doubt becomes the stronger seed and the field responds to it. Persistence is the antidote to oscillation. It is to remain unshakable even in the face of contradiction. It is to feel rich even with an empty pocket, loved even in the absence of gestures, healed even in the face of pain. This is not illusion. It is faith in its purest state. And faith, when it becomes natural, transforms into law. Realize, the world does not change when you want it to. It changes when you already are. Therefore, do not struggle to believe. Inhabit the feeling. Make it your resting place. In the morning, before opening your eyes, immerse yourself in the sensation that everything is already fulfilled. At night, before sleeping, mentally relive the scene of your desire fulfilled and fall asleep in it. This is the sacred repetition, the one not measured in words but in vibration. You do not need to convince yourself. You merely need to allow yourself to remain. The universe does not ignore a heart that perseveres. It may seem silent, but it is working behind the scenes, aligning circumstances, people, and opportunities to materialize what you have already decreed. Everything that is maintained with love and certainty becomes inevitable. So, persist. Even when the world seems still, continue feeling. Even when the result takes time, continue believing. Because persistence is not insistence, it is trust. And when your feeling becomes unshakable, the universe has no alternative but to obey. The invisible is moved by the constancy of feeling, and constancy is the purest proof of faith. Sustain the state until it sustains you, and then everything you desire will come naturally, as something that was always yours. Everything you have heard so far converges to a simple and immutable truth. The power is within you. There are no external forces deciding your destiny, no luck, no chance. There is only consciousness. Everything that manifests in your life is the perfect reflection of the state you have chosen to inhabit. The universe is not your enemy. It is your mirror. It denies you nothing. It merely returns what you sustain with greater conviction. Therefore, it is useless to ask for changes if you continue vibrating in the same identity. The world can only offer you what you believe yourself to be. From this moment on, stop acting as someone who needs to convince the universe to hear you. You are already heard. You always have been. Every thought of yours is a command. Every feeling, a silent order. And each time you repeat a truth with faith, the invisible begins to move to materialize it. There is no magic, there is law. The law of assumption is the foundation of all creation. What you assume to be true within yourself sooner or later will become visible. So, beg no more. Command. Speak with serenity, with authority, with the power of one who knows they are an heir to creation itself. Nothing is impossible for one who lives in the state of, it is already. And when fear comes, when doubt whispers, return to inner silence and repeat, everything I desire is already coming to me. 6 times are enough, provided each word is charged with certainty. Feel the energy shift within you. The air becomes lighter, the heart firmer, the spirit more awake. This is how reality bends. This is how the invisible bows before faith. You do not need to chase what is yours. You merely need to remember who you are. The Creator does not ask, they decree. And the universe, obedient, responds, it is done. You want to understand in 20 minutes what took Neville Goddard 67 years to discover. He journeyed through the desert of doubt, the labyrinth of beliefs, the struggle against the visible world, until he realized the enemy was never external. The revelation didn't come as a lightning bolt, but as a surrender. When he finally silenced his own mind, something happened. He saw that everything he sought was already there, within him, from the very beginning. You too are trapped by the same misconception that kept him blind for decades, believing that life is something that happens to you and not something you project. The world you see is merely a reflection of what you assume to be true within yourself. Nothing exists outside of consciousness. People, opportunities, losses, failures, miracles, all are mirrors of the state you inhabit. It took Neville a lifetime to understand that the world is not cause, but consequence. He tried to change circumstances, tried to act, pray, repeat, wait, until he realized that all external effort was a confession of ignorance. Because one who knows the law does not struggle, they assume. The human mind lives like a beggar before an infinite banquet. It asks, it begs, it waits for signs, when all it needs is to assume it already has. This is the key Neville finally found. Imagination is not fantasy. It is the very substance of reality. The invisible is the real. The visible is merely the shadow of what has already been accepted in the invisible. What you call future is not something that will come. It is something that already is, waiting for you to align with the corresponding state. Neville, after years of practice, understood that every prayer is useless if it comes from a state of lack, that every affirmation is empty if it comes from someone who still doubts, and that every desire is a prison if you don't inhabit it now. He discovered that the secret is not in doing but in being, that the power is not in fighting against appearances but in ignoring them with the serenity of one who has already won. He realized that true faith is not hope, it is remembrance. You don't need decades of study to understand this. You only need an instant of lucidity, an instant when you stop seeking and remember, I am the cause of everything. Everything I see is the echo of what I accepted myself to be. The world doesn't react to words, it reacts to states. Reality doesn't respond to requests. It responds to the identity you silently sustain. That is why many pray and few receive, because they remain the same, even while asking. What took Neville 67 years to discover is that there is no path between wanting and having. There is no bridge. The only movement is internal, that of consciousness changing its state. The one who desires and the one who already is are two completely different realities. The world you experience now is merely the confirmation of what you chose to be at some point in the past. And what you will be tomorrow is already being decided now, at this very instant, by the quality of your feeling. So, listen carefully. Everything you need to know about creation is right here before you, not in the words but in the silence that sustains them. I didn't come to teach you something new. I came to remind you of what you forgot. You are the creator pretending to be the creature. And until you accept this truth with your whole being, the world will continue to show you the reflection of your own denial. Nothing exists outside of consciousness. This is the first truth Neville needed to live, not just intellectually comprehend. Because the human mind accepts the idea that thoughts create, but continues to believe that a solid, fixed world exists, independent of its perception. This is an illusion. What you call reality is not a stable structure. It is a constant projection of what you are internally. Everything that exists around you is a mirror of your consciousness. The street, people, situations, money, illness, healing, everything is merely the external image of what you have accepted as truth within yourself. As long as man believes that something out there can influence his life, he will continue to live as a victim. This is the root of ignorance, because what is out there is merely an echo. You hear the sound, but forget that you were the one who produced it. Every experience begins as an internal state, a silent recognition of being something. When this recognition is sustained, the world materializes the corresponding conditions. It is like a shadow following the body. The physical world is the shadow of consciousness. Neville struggled against this for years, trying to change the shadows. He prayed, affirmed, acted, believing that external movement would bring results. But the more he exerted himself, the more the world resisted, until he realized he was trying to move the mirror instead of changing the face staring back at him. Nothing changes externally until something changes internally. When you understand this, life becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. Because you stop reacting and start choosing. The world is not an adversary, it is an obedient collaborator. It has no will of its own. It merely reflects the image you project from your inner state. If there is scarcity within you, the world closes. If there is fullness within, it opens. It's not magic, it's law. A law that does not judge, reward, or punish. It merely reflects. Therefore, consciousness is the only creative power. Everything you call chance is merely a reflection of what was unconsciously assumed. You can repeat 1,000 times that you believe in abundance, but if deep down you feel fear of loss, life will respond to that fear, not to the words. The universe doesn't listen to what you say. It responds to what you are. Neville understood late in life that the world is not an obstacle, it is a mirror, and that the awakened man does not struggle with the reflection. He smiles at the mirror and changes his face. You can spend an entire life trying to fix the scenery, or you can close your eyes, go within yourself and adjust the cause. What happens externally is inevitable because it is merely the echo of what has already been decided in the invisible. And when you understand this deeply, you will never again fear the world, because you know it is merely you projected in the form of life. The second principle is that the state is everything. It took Neville many years to understand that creation does not happen through isolated thoughts, but through a sustained state. The state is the continuous vibration of consciousness, the inner atmosphere in which you live, even when you are not speaking, not imagining, not praying. It is the invisible tone that emits a silent command to the universe. Everything that happens in your life responds to this tone. Thoughts are like sparks, but the state is the constant fire. That is why people can think positively all day long and still live in scarcity, because their internal states continue to be those of doubt, lack, or waiting. Neville realized that a state is not created with effort, but with acceptance. It is a calm, natural, silent feeling. When you desire something, the desire shows the state you are not yet in. You only desire what you feel is missing. Therefore, the true work is not to chase after the desire, but to change the state to one where the desire is already fulfilled. This is the great transition, to stop trying and start being. The common man says, "I want to have," but the awakened one says, "I am." The difference is subtle, but it is everything. Assuming a state is an act of silent faith. It is living as if the invisible were already visible, as if the outcome were already present. And this does not mean deceiving yourself or forcing yourself to believe, but internally inhabiting the feeling of already possessing. When you truly enter this state, something changes. Your body relaxes, the mind quiets, and anxiety disappears. Because you stopped asking and started recognizing. You stopped affirming a lack and started expressing fullness. Neville observed that each person lives trapped in a state without knowing it. The poor person is not poor because they lack money, but because they inhabit the state of one who always needs. The sick person is not a slave to illness, but to the state of being sick. When the state changes, the body, the environment, and the circumstances follow. That is why he said, "Change your state, and the world will change with you." Everything you see now is a portrait of the state you have been sustaining. Nothing is fixed. States are like clothes. You can take them off and put on others. But it takes courage to abandon the old self, the one who complains, fears, and waits. Because it will resist. It will say it's impossible. But the impossible only exists within the old state. The new state is the only place where miracles are natural. The secret is not in mentally convincing yourself, but in feeling different. When the feeling changes, the state changes. When the state changes, the world transforms. It is inevitable. This is the point Neville finally understood. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are. And what you are, at this instant, is determined by the state you choose to inhabit now. The third principle is that imagination is the only creative power. Neville heard this from me many times before truly understanding what it meant. Because the human mind confuses imagination with dreams, fantasy, daydreaming. But imagination is divine power itself in action. It is the instrument with which consciousness creates all things. What you see as matter, body, money, circumstance, is merely solidified imagination. Everything began as an inner image sustained with conviction. The world is the mind made visible. Imagination is not something you use now and then. It is what you are. At every moment, you are imagining something, consciously or unconsciously, and life responds to these images. Every sensation, every internal dialogue, every mental scene is a creative act. The problem is that man imagines without knowing it. He creates misery and then calls it destiny. He visualizes failure and then blames others. He imagines rejection and the world obeys. What you keep alive within yourself is what the universe undertakes to make tangible. Neville realized that all true creation is born from feeling something imagined as real. It's not enough to see mentally, you must feel, because feeling is the seal that imprints the image onto the invisible substance. When you imagine with emotion, the subconscious receives the command as something completed. It does not distinguish between the real and the imagined. It merely obeys. And this obedience is infallible. You can doubt, get distracted, forget, but what has been accepted as true in feeling will find a way to manifest. Imagination is the portal between the invisible and the visible. Everything you desire already exists on this inner plane. When you imagine consciously, you are not creating something new. You are selecting, choosing, aligning yourself with the version of reality where it is already a fact. This is why people who try to manifest do not succeed. They imagine like someone who asks, and not like someone who creates. One who asks imagines lack. One who creates imagines possession. Neville understood that disciplined imagination is the bridge to any transformation. When he began using his nights to construct inner scenes of fulfillment and yielded to sleep, feeling them as real, his life began to change effortlessly. He realized that sustained imagination is the true act of faith. Because faith is not hope, it is inner vision sustained with certainty. When you imagine something and no longer doubt, the entire universe bows before that conviction. Therefore, imagination is not merely the beginning of creation, it is creation itself. The world you see is the result of the collective imagination of humankind, and your personal world is the exact reflection of the images you hold. There is no power outside of this. Everything that was, is, and will be is born first in the mind of one who dares to see the invisible as already existing. This is the true alchemy, transforming thought into substance, invisible into fact, imagination into reality. The fourth principle is that true faith is the forgetting of the old self. Neville only understood this after a long time trying to believe. He thought faith was insisting, repeating, affirming strongly until something happened. But faith is not effort, it is surrender. It is the moment when you completely abandon the old identity and without hesitation assume that of the being who already possesses what they desire. The true leap is not from doubting to believing, but from wanting to being. As long as you still identify with what you are asking for, you remain the one who does not have. And life obediently can only keep you in that role. Faith begins when the old self dies, when you stop seeing yourself as the one who struggles, who seeks, who needs to prove something, when you empty yourself of all resistance, of all attachment to the story you've been repeating. This moment is silent and often painful because it is a real death, the death of the character you believed yourself to be. The man of faith stops sustaining the old name, the old identity, the old emotion. He does not fight them, he merely abandons them. He puts on a new state naturally, like someone changing clothes, and lives from it. Neville realized that faith is not a force that convinces the universe, but the inner disposition of already being in union with the desired. It is living as if nothing else needed to happen. It is refusing any external proof that contradicts the new state. The man of faith does not react, he remains. He does not seek signs, he knows. And it is in this silent knowing that the invisible begins to organize itself. Everything that is true is born from inner stillness, not from anxiety. Faith is not a cry to heaven. It is an inner silence that says, "It is already." And when this silence is established, the world bends. Because the universe recognizes only that which is assumed with conviction. The old self doubts, compares, measures, waits. The new merely is. And between these two states there is an abyss. The abyss that separates time from eternity, man from divine consciousness. When Neville understood this, he stopped trying to make things happen. He merely assumed and rested. And everything began to move naturally. People appeared, circumstances changed, and the impossible became commonplace. He discovered that faith is not struggle, it is memory. It is remembering who you truly are, that the power was always within you, and that the world never had a will of its own. One who has true faith does not ask for things to change. He changes, and the world follows. The fifth principle is that everything already is. This was Neville's final revelation, the point where all effort ceased and the mystery became simple. He understood that nothing is coming, nothing is forming, nothing is being created in the sense that man understands. Everything already exists in a potential state, within consciousness. Time is merely the way the human mind decodes the eternal now. What you call manifestation is not the arrival of something new. but the revelation of what has always been there, waiting for you to become capable of perceiving it. When you desire something, that desire is not born of emptiness. It is the echo of an already existing reality, calling you to itself. Desire is the language of another version of yourself saying, "Come here, it is already done." And yet, man insists on asking, pleading, struggling, acting with desperation, as if what he desires were external, distant, in the future. But the future is merely the illusion of the present yet unrecognized. What you seek is not coming, it is being chosen now in the invisible by the state you sustain. Everything already is. This phrase destroys fear, dissolves doubt, and frees man from the slavery of waiting. Because if everything already is, then the work is not to acquire, but to allow. It is not to conquer, but to align oneself. That is why imagination is the supreme power. It does not create something new. It merely shifts the focus of consciousness, like someone changing the channel of a station that has always been broadcasting. What changes is the receiver, not the signal. Neville realized that the waiting time is merely the interval necessary for the human mind to accept what is already true on the inner plane, and that when acceptance is total, time disappears. Manifestation occurs without warning because, in essence, there was never any distance between desiring and having. There was only resistance in believing. When you feel that something is already real, the universe has no other choice but to confirm it. It does not create from nothing, it reveals from consciousness. This is why miracles appear instantaneous for some and prolonged for others. It is not about when, but how much you accept. The man who knows that everything already is does not rush, does not doubt, does not watch the clock. He merely lives in the now with serenity, because he knows that everything necessary has already been provided. He walks in the invisible with the confidence of one who knows that the invisible is the real, and the visible is merely its shadow. Everything already is. This is the final statement, the key to all creation. When you understand this, you will stop asking and start commanding. You will stop waiting and start being, because what you call life is not a sequence of events, but the reflection of what you choose to be now, in this eternal instant. Now that you have heard these truths, understand, there is nothing more to seek. What took Neville 67 years to discover is that all of life is merely the projection of consciousness. Everything you call destiny, coincidence, failure, or miracle is nothing more than an exact response to the state you have decided to sustain. There are no exceptions, no prayer, no effort, no technique has power beyond what is already contained in what you assume to be. Creation does not happen when something appears, but when you change your inner state and remain in it until the world inevitably bows. You need to understand that power is not in repeating words, but in silencing yourself before doubt. Power is not in asking, but in recognizing. Each time you ask, you declare that you do not yet have. Each time you doubt, you affirm the opposite of what you desire. Life is too precise to err. It merely reflects what is sustained with faith and feeling. Therefore, abandon the position of a beggar now and assume the throne that has always been yours. Stop begging the world to change. Stop waiting for signs, coincidences, or luck. Everything you need is already within you, awaiting only your decision to be. From this instant, choose the state and remain in it. Close your eyes and see what you desire, not like someone observing a distant dream, but like someone reliving an already fulfilled memory. Feel the peace of one who knows it is done. Feel the gratitude of one who has already received. Walk with this certainty. Speak, think, act as one who already possesses. And when doubt tries to drag you back, remember, it is merely the last breath of the old self dying. Ignore it with serenity and return to the chosen state. Nothing and no one can prevent you from being what you already are in consciousness. The world does not create your identity, it merely reveals it. Therefore, stop fighting against the shadows and turn toward the light within you. All that is already is. All that will be already is. Reality does not wait. It obeys. So, in silence and certainty, command the invisible, what is already true in your heart. Remain in this knowing, because the Creator does not ask. The Creator declares, and the universe responds, Amen.